Okay, I started a Zoom session. Try to get everything going here. It's been so long since I've seen you guys.
It does feel like a while.
It has. It's been a really long time. I always feel this way in the spring semester. We always have snow days, it seems like. And of course, C#1 class always gets to miss when they don't need to. We just are lucky that way. So I know the videos that I asked you to watch, if you watched them, they're a little bit dated, and so Visual Studio is a little different. But that video series, when you're a teacher and you have to post to YouTube, it's not very fun, let me tell you. I was not designed to be an actress. It's not my favorite thing. And so it's very important to me when I get good feedback from people, and I've gotten a lot of feedback on that series from people that are outside of the college, that they have really liked it. So I'm just going to leave it out there, even if it's old and using Visual Studio 2008 or something, I don't know. And at least it talks a little bit about classes. But no, it wasn't what I wanted to do last Wednesday. You know, for sure, it wasn't what any of us wanted to do. But hopefully it got you some information. Now, has everybody been able to get this project open? Remember, if it says not loading up here, what would that be? It's still compressed. You have to uncompress it before you can open it. Or Visual Studio won't be able to load it. A few people are like, oh, sorry. That's why I want to say it that way, to really make everybody remember, because you know it's going to give you that message when you're really stressed. And you won't remember. That just means you didn't unzip the file. Okay, so I've got this project here. And when I look at Solution Explorer, now I have a whole lot more stuff than I did in the simple projects that we were doing at the beginning of the semester. But I still see program.cs, so I'm going to click on that and take a look at it. Can you find it?
Yeah, screen sharing.
Oh, thank you. Well, I started the Zoom. Just want everything. Now, find this silly thing. Everybody else okay?
That's what's in the closed caption channel. Is that one? So you can get to the 150 -1, 2. So just do that.
Send the 2 again.
Roll set and talk to it.
Sure. Yeah, I was just getting the big one. Should show it to you now. Get everybody going here. Okay. See that one? I appreciate you guys being flexible with the Discord server. I know it can be kind of confusing to find something, but let me tell you, it is a billion times better than any other facility that we could use. I posted it to Canvas, I can never find it. Yay.
John did that. He opens that. You go back. He opens that. Open with visuals.
But you can just click and open the solution file.
So, yeah, I guess you could.
Why does it say that it's unavailable? To me, it looks like it's still there. Why does it say extract here? That really is so compressed.
Don't mess you up.
I'll take a selfie.
You won't be able to do anything. Thank you so much, Kendall. He's getting everybody going here. All right. So let's look at our program.cs. Good job. We got there. This program, if I look at it, this application, I can tell, looking at Solution Explorer, that it probably has something to do with cars and motorcycles, but I can't really tell anything else. Now I can go through all this code in the program.cs file, but let's run it and see what it does. So I'll go ahead and just run this application, make sure it's all good. And I see, first it spits out this message about fun with class types, and then it proceeds to have a whole bunch of fun. Yay, fun, way fun. Then it says, writer name is Tiny, and then Henry here starts going faster and faster and faster. So that's what the main is outputting here. All right. So if I look at the code, the very first line in our main method, I see, does output that message. Whenever we're working with class files, we're usually going to be doing something that we were given some sort of assignment for. So let's think about it. Let's say you were at work and they come in and they say, we are going to create a new system, a new application, and we want a class that keeps track of training sessions. We're going to offer training sessions, and so for this training session class, I want to know the name of the session, the date it's going to be held, the room that it's going to be in, and maybe the instructor, time, general things like that I need to know about a training session. So I'm going to get that information from my boss, and I'm going to go, okay, and I'm going to go off and I'm going to create that class structure, the class template that says, oh, for a training class, I need to know the instructor, the name of the class, all of those things. And when I'm done creating that class, there's not going to be anything for me to connect that to, any big system out there to test it, to make sure I did my class right. What if my class is wrong and it doesn't handle sessions properly, or it takes the name and shoves it in where the description of the class should be, or it does something backwards like that. I need to test it and make sure that it's good. In order to test it, I'm going to use a console type application, and I'm going to make my main method be my tester. So all my main method is doing here is testing out my class to make sure my class code works right. When I create an instance of my class, the name of the class gets in the right field instead of the instructor and things like that, so I can test it. So that's how we use our program.cs. Our object-oriented code is in our car and our motorcycle.cs files, and we'll be looking at those. But our main is our tester. So it's just going to try our different classes and do some things with them. That's all it's doing. It's not doing any like real work. So in our main, the first thing we have then is this output that it's having fun with class types. And then we make a motorcycle. There's some important things about that line of code. Let's put some comments here. Whenever we create this motorcycle, we are creating a new instance of a motorcycle. Now, if I think about motorcycles, each one of them that's out there is different, right? They're never the same motorcycle. If two people are riding motorcycles, they each have their own. And that's what an instance is. It's a separate instance of a motorcycle. Now, when I create this new instance, I have to have the new keyword. The new keyword says instantiate. I can spell an instance. So it's kind of like, in a really, really gross way, giving birth to this motorcycle. We're saying, I need a motorcycle. I've been carrying this motorcycle for 7 months. I am ready to get it out. Let's create a new motorcycle. Here it is. Our new motorcycle is named what? C. So let's put that in. The instance name is C. Okay, so what's really important here, just like we did with our methods, we started out this line of code with the word motorcycle. The motorcycle is our data type. In C#, we know we have specific data types like double and decimal and int and string, but nobody ever said there was a data type called motorcycle. Well, there wasn't until we created it, but now that we have this motorcycle class, it's a valid data type. And that's part of why object-oriented programming is so powerful, because we can take that motorcycle class now and use it as though it's a data type. So motorcycle is my data type. C is my instance name. New is required to create an instance. And then we have to repeat our data type. And that's just because it's not known to C#, it's a class of ours. So we have to reinforce that idea that this is a motorcycle. The last thing in our statement, we have the 5 within parentheses, and that's actually a parameter that's being passed to our motorcycle constructor. And our motorcycle constructor is a special method that we'll take a look at. So that line of code creates a new motorcycle instance. It's now out there in memory. It has some information about the motorcycle. One piece of information that it has is the driver name. So in that next line of code, we're using the instance C to run the set driver name method. And we're going to be setting the driver name for our C motorcycle to Tiny. Papa Wheelie. And then we're going to use our instance C to run the Papa Wheelie method in the same way. Now, those methods are part of our motorcycle class. That's why we have to have an instance name before them, before we can run them, because they don't run just on their own. They only run on a motorcycle class. Let's look at our motorcycle class, not the code, but with your motorcycle.cs file, right-click and choose View Class Diagram. Eventually, it should let you click that drop down there to see more. So now I can see what's in our motorcycle class. This is a class diagram, and it's just like a UML diagram, only Microsoft, because they build it dynamically in Visual Studio, it's missing, you know, some components of UML, but it's really good for us. So I see now my motorcycle class has driver intensity and driver name is data that it cares about. And then actions that it can perform are motorcycle, which creates a new motorcycle. Pop a wheelie, set driver name, and set intensity. So we can do all of those different actions with our motorcycle. Now, the class diagram just opened up on another tab. So I'm just going to click back on my program.cs tab to go back to it. And we can just kind of move around real easily like that. All right, after we pop a wheelie, the next line of code is using c.driver_name. So in that case, again, we're using instance c to get the driver's name. Bless you. And this is where it can be really hard for people who are really down to earth, really rule oriented, you know, really like things to work the way they're supposed to, because we're kind of messing with stuff here, right? In our tester, here we set the driver's name, and here we're printing it out. And yes, those are very close to each other. It's not a realistic application. It's just designed to test our class. So yeah, we want to make sure we can update the name, and then after we do, we get the right value out of it. So that's why we're doing both of those. Okay, let's go look at our motorcycle class, because we looked at that class diagram. I'm going to take a look at the actual .cs file. In our motorcycle class, we start out with the data fields that showed up in our class diagram, the driver intensity and the driver name. These are the things we decided we need to keep track of about our motorcycle. I'm going to expand this one that says C Tours, and I'm going to change it. So they have a bunch of commented out code in here, and in the textbook, they do some manipulation of these different constructors, trying different things. Let's change that statement where it says C Tours, and let's make it say constructors. I'm fine if you guys call them C Tours, but the test and everything will call them constructors. And a constructor is just a special kind of method that creates an instance of a thing. So if I were to look at my C motorcycle now, I have this instance name C, and inside of it, we have our driver name, and we have our, what's that other thing they want? Intensity. So this is sitting out here in memory for our C instance. We'll make another instance here in a second and think about how that would affect it. Now, whenever I use the constructor, it creates the instance. All of this code is commented out, but let's go down to the one that is not. This is our constructor. Now, before we look at it, notice that this # region statement closes this # region statement. And all these region statements do is let us collapse at that spot. Okay, so they're compiler directives, so the compiler just throws them away. They're not actual code. They're just things that we can use to organize our code and set things up the way stuff looks. All right, so I'm going to leave these commented out constructors rolled up there. No, I want that last one. Okay, I'll have to leave. So this is the one I want to look at. First of all, this is a constructor. I'm going to put a comment to that effect. And a constructor is a special method that instantiates a class. It has no return type. So notice looking at our header here, it says public motorcycle, and it doesn't have void or decimal or int or anything for its return type. And that's because it's a constructor. So no constructor ever has a return type. It does have some weird parameters. They're trying to give you guys like 50,000 different samples of code. And please be trying things so that you can see the difference. What they've done here is they've got 2 parameters with initial values. So in our parameter list, we set up an integer named intensity, and we're giving it an initial value of 0. And then we set up a string called name, and we're giving it an initial value of an empty string. So int intensity equals 0. And then our string empty string. So in our program.cs file, when we said we wanted to create a new motorcycle, execution was transferred to this special method, this constructor method. And this method got to run, and it set up its variables, driver intensity and driver name. And then it said, okay, I'm done. I've created an instance of a motorcycle. Now, when we try to change the driver's name, we use the set driver name method. Again, they've got some special syntax in here. This is a regular method, but it doesn't have a body, right? No curly braces. So it looks kind of weird. At least to me it does. So the reason I have no curly braces is because it's using that lambda expression. And the lambda expression is the equal greater than. And that tells C# that there's a shortcut going on. This is a one-line method. And so we don't have to have opening and closing curly braces. And when we get to if statements and stuff, you'll see the same thing holds true. If I'm just going to execute one line of code, if the if statement is true, I don't need curly braces to hold it. But this method would be just fine if we put curly braces around it and got rid of that weird lambda expression. Then it would look just like all of our other methods. Now, the this keyword means this instance. So for us right now, if we ran set driver name, this would be our C motorcycle. That would be the motorcycle that we're working with. And here's our Papa Wheelie. We see all of our yeehaw messages coming out that we saw, and our set intensity. So within our class, they've put some special code in to try and give you guys all sorts of opportunities to see every code known to man. I don't know that that's necessarily the best for brand new C# programmers, but when we're done, you're going to sure know a lot. It's kind of hectic. Let's take a look at our car. We haven't run through the main method looking at how it tests our car yet, but we should be able to look at our class in kind of the same way. So the car has some variables, class variables, and they say in their comment, the state of the car. These are state variables because it's going to tell us how fast the car is going and what its name is, kind of what's its current state. And then I'm going to expand the constructors. Now, when we look at our car, we have several constructors. So right here, I could create a car without passing any parameters. If I did, the car would be named Chuck and its speed would be set to 10. If I create a car and pass in just a string, then I will create a car with the pet name of whatever string I passed in. If I create a car passing in a string and an integer, then I'll get a car created with the variables that I passed in. So all of these constructor methods having the same name are overloaded methods or overloaded constructor methods. They all have the same name, but they have a different signature because their parameters are different. So the C# runtime system will look at the call and determine which constructor is the correct one to use that matches up. So our car has multiple constructors.
So there's an empty one, there's a string one, there's a string and an integer one. What if somebody passed the car with just an integer?
They would get an error. So it wouldn't let them do that right now
So
because we don't have.
You can only do stuff that you set up in your
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, really good point. So we wouldn't be able to just throw something else at it. We didn't know what to do.
But you could create a constructor that passes in an integer.
Mhm.
You can make one that just has an
Right.
But as of right now,
Yeah. So in our car, we have one method that prints out some information about it. It's state. And all it does is it prints out the name of the car is going how many miles per hour. So that would be that output that we saw where it was what Zippy was doing and it kept changing the miles per hour. It was using the print state method. So great stuff. Let's create some region statements in our car class. First of all, right under the opening curly brace, I'm going to do # region. And then I'm going to say something like the instance variables. Now my instance variables are only 2, so it's not a very big region. So I'm going to type end region after those 2 variables are declared. Because I might have 20 of them, so maybe it'll be a big region. They already have a region statement for us for constructors. And let's create a region now for our instance methods. And notice as soon as I put that # region statement in, I'm going to have kind of a weird error at the end because I don't have the end region. So I'll put that in. And then that kind of red squiggly should go away. Now, if we put those region statements in our classes, then we can roll everything up to where we can see our different sections, our different areas, and then we can just click the plus sign to expand it out to see what we want. Whenever you're doing this, we can create those region statements, but if you'll notice, the IDE creates them automatically for methods, things like that. So there will be a bunch already that are created, but we can create our own. Again, to me, these region statements can help us as beginning programmers keep organized and remember what our stuff is. So sometimes I'll put something like that, the instance variables, and sometimes I might type a different comment because these things can be referred to in so many different ways, so that way we've got some different terminology going. But we can just organize our stuff. Now I still don't have comments in here, right? So many different things that we can do. Bless you. Okay, so we can organize that code. Sometimes organizing your code and different things like that might feel, I don't know, like a time waster, especially if you're under a strict deadline. But sometimes just doing those kinds of things can give your brain a chance to form some connections and think, I know what we should do. We should try this. And so sometimes it can be really just what your mind needs to get it to thinking about something. So it's always worthwhile. I'm going to click back on my program.cs file. I used to teach PC maintenance and networking. And when I was teaching command prompt for like DOS command prompt, and then when I taught Linux classes, it can be really hard to remember what to type on that black screen, especially if you're having problems. You got called in and it's 2 in the morning and that black screen is facing you. And so I always told people, remember the directory command, dir, because if you can type dir, it's going to start showing you files that are on the machine. And as you look at things, you're going to start thinking about things that you could try or things to do. So anything is better than nothing. All right, I've got my motorcycle named C out here. I want to create a new one. So right after our console.writeLine that's outputting this blank line, let's create a new instance of a motorcycle. So I'm going to say this is a motorcycle. I have this friend who lives like out on East Sunshine right now for a while, but he has a Harley and he put NOS, is that what you say? Yeah, yeah, and so I don't know how long he'll be out there on East Campbell, but we'll, like the 8 o'clock class said, let's name our motorcycle Harley. We'll say it's a new instance of our motorcycle class.
So we could just, we could go ahead and just put pass those parameters in that, in those parentheses right now.
Well, there's a really easy way for us to tell us. Such a good question. When I click that open parenthesis, if I don't type anything then, IntelliSense, I could go look at that class, but I don't have to. IntelliSense is actually going to help us and say, well, there's the first parameter is intensity, and the second parameter is name. Okay, so we could type those in if we wanted to. What do we want to make it? Let's see, our last motorcycle is a 5 of intensity, and this is a Harley. So just, okay, is that more or less? What should we call it? Oil dripper? Come on, give me a good name. What's a good name?
I just can't remember what the name of the guy who ran that restaurant in Dukes Hazard. What was the name of the guy that ran the like hog? It was like the
Boss Hog?
yeah. We did a boss.
Boss would be good. Let's name it Boss. That sounds good. It's Boss Harley. Now, we are creating this instance of a motorcycle, but we have to do something with it if we ever want to see anything about that motorcycle. So let's put a console.writeLine in. And I want this message to be a lot like the previous one. I'm just going to say the new rider is parameter 0. And whoops, IntelliSense started helping me there and made a big mess. Now I want to get our driver name, but I don't want C.driver name. I want Harley.driver name because I want the driver name for our new motorcycle instance that we named Harley. So now we have C over here. Now we have Harley out here in memory right beside it. We made its name be hog and its intensity be 10. And this one's intensity was 5, right? So both of these are sitting out in memory. We have these things sitting here. We can access them, we can use them, we can keep referring to them or updating them, whatever we want to do. Let's make sure. Let's run this. So I see now my yeehaw and my rider name is Tiny. And then there's our new message because we were right in the middle. The new rider is Boss. So could we output something that had information from both of our motorcycles? How about if I said motorcycle C has rider and motorcycle and Harley, I'm trying to make it short, has. Now I need to specify what variables to use to replace those parameters. For the first one, I want to use C dot driver name. For the second one, I want to use Harley dot driver name. So see how we can refer to the driver name of both of those motorcycle instances in the same command if we want to. So let's run that and make sure. And now we get both motorcycle C has rider Tiny and Harley has Boss. Everybody okay? Working? Good, okay. I think we're in good shape. In our new instance, let's go ahead and put some comments here in the same way. Motorcycle is our data type. Harley is our instance name. New is the required keyword. And they will ask that on tests and even on the Microsoft certification exam, what keyword is required to instantiate an object? The new keyword. And it's a very hard question to get used to. Then we're saying it's a motorcycle, instance of a motorcycle. And then finally, our parameters. So we're going to be passing those values. Questions. Let's see how everybody's doing. Okay, let's save this one. And we might want to refer back to it here in a minute or two. But I want to see how everybody's feeling about all these class concepts here. Eight. Smack those people around. We're up to 13. How many should we have? Somebody counted 4, 5, 6. A lot more. We should have a lot more. Where I used to teach, we had sending schools from different towns, and one of the towns is one of the last districts in the state of Missouri that allows paddling. Tell you what, those kids were just so well behaved. All right, are we ready? 17 is good. Can you tell where my mind was? Abusing students. Properties are defined with which access mode? Thought you guys were doing so good. You're doing great. It's fine. Objects are instances of get that paddle out. Very good. I think applause is in order. Which modifier is the most restrictive? Kind of educated guesses. Chris is on fire. Follow standard naming conventions for a class. Oh, shoot. This question may be flawed. Yeah, 14 would be okay too. And, the blue one and the green one would also be correct. Yes, you guys got them all right. It is a flaw in the cahoots. I did not get it fixed since this morning, and I should have. Okay, we have an instance grad student. How should it invoke the calculate average method? Very good. And if you find yourself, and I'll show you that too, I'll be backspacing and typing a dot to see what IntelliSense says, and then I'll backspace and try something else. And people that have been coding with C# for 20 years do the same thing if it's something new that they haven't experimented with before. It's just something we need to find as fun as doing that exploration and figuring it out. It's not frustrating, it's fun. Properties define the blank, while methods define the blank. Whoa, that was really good. Our snake out here. What operator is used to instantiate a class? I shouldn't have made such a big deal out of that one. Very good. I guess it was okay. Huh? Instance variables are the same as very good. Which would be the correct constructor? Very good. And we usually want our constructors to be public so that other classes can see them. Not always, but usually. Public double get yards. What is that? Very good. With a UML class diagram. Woohoo. Tomas is getting you guys. Which modifiers are used with constructors? Good. In order to provide a new definition for the toString method, what keyword did they say you had to use? Of course, we haven't talked about it in class. So make sure you're watching those videos because our snow day cost us. Let's see. Tomas has the highest answer streak. Oh, this is the last one. Getters and setters are found within the It's a poorly worded question too. You guys have done great. Woo-hoo. Woo-hoo. Who's this? Our snake. Alex. No, he's not Alex. Oh, someone's sneaky. We don't know. Look at him dance. Woo-hoo. Very good, very good. Close it. So there are a lot of things when we're looking at classes that we have to learn about. And a lot of these things are things that we're going to be working on as the semester goes. We're going to talk about something, practice with it a little bit, and then we'll talk about something else, practice with it, getting that stuff behind. We'll move ahead a little bit, and every time we'll keep backing up and getting all that stuff that we've already talked about and practicing it over and over again, because C# is too big of a subject for you to get a complete concept in a week like we have. So if you get to a point where you can practice, you can do some things, then you are making appropriate progress, and we'll keep practicing so that it all makes more sense. So through this activity, I want to make sure that I've got our groups right. I might need to fix something real quick. Can you check your group? Because I think it was this class I had to merge a group. Might not have been this class. Let's check. Yeah, we have 5 study groups, so I need to make one more thing here. Let me show you what we're going to do. I'll post this to Discord too, so you can find it, so don't worry about it. But I want a status report from your study group, because we had that snow day last week, and I do think it was a bad time for us to have a snow day. And like I said, it happens every semester. I want you to get together with your study group, and I want you guys to really talk about some of these things. Are you getting more confident with creating and opening and saving C# projects in Visual Studio? And I saw people helping each other. We used REPL so much that sometimes we're not getting as much practice in Visual Studio as we would if we weren't using REPL. So that can be a thing to keep practicing with. Second, check in with your study group. How's everybody doing with methods? I want you to be understanding the structure. that we have this class structure, and within a C# program, we have methods or subprograms within that. And then finally, after our unit exam, we'll start looking at logic. But I want you to check in with your study groups. Anybody have questions this morning? I heard people helping each other, answering questions, which was really good. You know, because one person was clear on one thing and another person was clear on something else. What's a method header? How is it formatted? How does that relate to a hierarchy diagram? How do you feel about calling methods? That's a pretty confusing topic. So it can definitely be good for everybody to talk about that together. So I want you guys to get together and for the first few minutes be talking about your status. You know, we're ready for our Unit 1 exam. We're going to be moving on to if statements. Let me tell you a little bit about what happens here. It's so weird. But we're going to be looking at all these classes. And usually in this section where we talk about classes, it can be confusing for people. And we're going to leave that section and go on to if statements and looping structures. And you'll be amazed after that, when we come back and look at classes again, we do another class, you'll be like, well, we need to do this. We need to have a constructor. We need this. And you'll be amazed at how much of it you really do know from stepping away from it for a couple of weeks and working on logic and then coming back to it. So we'll be in really good shape. Now, we won't be away from it completely, but, you know, we won't be focusing on it. So that would be your first thing, kind of an overview. How are we doing? You know, where are our problem areas? And then each study group is going to train all the other study groups. I need to add another one here. So let's think about how we could split this up. Right now, I'm going to ask group 1 to explain the class header and class data items. Group 2 to explain public properties. Group 3 to talk about instance methods. Group 4 to talk about overloaded methods. And we're going to have group 5 do the same as group 2 because public properties are very confusing. We'll just have 2 groups explain that. Now, you can look around and you can see the sheets that the morning class left. So I'm going to give each group a sheet like that. And what I'd like is a code sample, some sort of definition, and a visual. As you can tell, you guys can do better on visuals. We've got some. It's hard to make a visual of code. So anything you can think of is going to help others. Okay, so questions about that? Does that make sense? I'm going to set the alarm and hope that we can go over these today. My plans are we'll start with, you know, group 1. They'll tell us how they are doing as far as status-wise, and then they'll explain their class header and class data items to us, and then we'll move to the next group. So we'll do a gallery walk. So I want the big sheets of paper so we have something really to look at. And it looks like our groups are in pretty good shape. I don't think we have any that are messed up too bad. So let's go ahead and do that. And I will set the alarm for, let's see. Yeah, I'll set the alarm for 2:10. We are definitely going to go over these next time. So next time when we come in, we'll go over our study group reviews. We'll do a little bit of reviewing for our unit exam, and then we'll take the unit exam. Now, the unit exam should be all multiple choice. You want to back up and look at the practice exams in our previous modules, because those practice exams are going to be from the same question bank, so they'll be super helpful. The questions are going to come more from vocab. So if you've been looking at the vocab on Quizlet, that's where our test questions are going to be coming from. So we shouldn't have any really off-the-wall wild questions that come from that C# Pro book. It should mostly be vocab, terminology, that kind of stuff. Those practice exams should give you exactly what you need. Now, I stopped and said all that because I don't want to interrupt you again. If your group gets done, you're welcome to leave, but please make sure you are done in a quality manner, not just that. So I won't even set my alarm. Find your group. Mhm.
I didn't get that.
Yeah, I'm gonna post it on Discord. The Word document. I'll put it in all the various Discord places. You guys all group 5. Okay, let me see if I'm gonna put this in. Class programs. Okay, you should see that Word document on Discord.